And we're off. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this 90-day look ahead for the LRT Stage 2 for Kitchissippi Ward. My name is Tom Peckloff. I'm the moderator for this evening. I work on traffic, transportation, transit files in the office of Kitchissippi Councillor Jeff Leeper. With us today, we have Damon Berlin from Stakeholder Relations, Ethel Kraft from Stakeholder Relations. Damon will be giving a presentation shortly. We have Jamie Robinson, who is the Director of Communications for KEV, the consortium building the LRT. Boden Zvaranic, who is Traffic and Transit Coordinator for the Rail Construction Program for the City of Ottawa. Of course, Councillor Jeff Leeper. Councillor Teresa Kavanagh is here as well, and I will promote her to panelist momentarily. And we have John Caldwell, I believe, as well, from the real estate division of the city. So how things will work this evening, as I said, Damon will start with a presentation. After that, there will be opportunity for a Q&A. At the bottom of your screen, you will see where it says Q&A. It's right beside our participants tab. We're at 68 right now. So the Q&A is directly to the right of that. You can put in all your questions there, and we will do the Q&A immediately following the presentation. Any comments or suggestions can be emailed to the Stage 2 office at stage2@ottawa.ca. stage2@ottawa.ca. So we do have the time up until about 8 o'clock. We will monitor that, of course. If we get to 8 o'clock and there are a handful of questions unanswered, we'll just keep on going. If we get to 8 o'clock and they're like 40, then we will take those back. We'll get them all answered and put them up on a blog post on kitchissippiward.ca. Without further ado, then, I will turn it over to Damon Berlin for our presentation this evening. Damon.
Thank you very much. I'm just confirming that you see the correct screen, which is not the one with the update, but only the main. Yes?
There's a title slide that says Stage 2 Project Update.
Excellent. Well then, we have success. Thank you all very much for making the time to join us this evening. My name is Damon Berlin. I do stakeholder relations for the Stage 2 project, primarily in Ward 7, but I do love my Ward 15, Kitchissippi Ward, and well, no matter how hard you try, I keep coming back like the common cold or the common Rona. But here we are to talk about the update for 2022 in Ward 15. A lot is going on, a lot has gone on, and a lot upcoming. And I hope that this presentation helps identify what is occurring and then really see the great progress that's been made. Tom has already introduced the people who will be here to help answer questions. We will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to add them to the Q&A window as Tom had suggested. Thank you. And here we go. You're all very aware, I'm sure, of the current project that we're undertaking, which is the extension west from Tunney's Pasture all the way to Moody, with an LMSF, a light maintenance and storage facility, on the other side of Moody Drive. South, north-south, we extend from Greenboro all the way down to the airport, as well as all the way down to Limebank. And in the east, we extend from Blair all the way to Trim in the east. In the east, we travel primarily through the median of OR 174. South, we go through, well, effectively farmers' fields today, future development. In the west, we find ourselves cutting through established neighborhoods, strong communities, businesses, important arterials, ramps for Highway 417. We do have a lot, and we do impact a lot. And I am a kind of guy who's going to tell you the way it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Construction is challenging. Construction isn't fun to live through. The best part about construction, and those of you who've sat through one of my presentations before, know that the best part about construction is that it finishes. When it's finished, well, in this instance, we're going to end up with a world-class light rail system. We're going to start our presentation today in the eastern part of Kitchissippi as far as our project limits are, with the conversation about the Scott Street bus detour. We have an update for the implementation of said bus detour, which is to be on June 26th, in line with OC Transpo's service change. And that's when we are going to be closing the transitway from Tunney's Pasture all the way to Kitchissippi. Now, that is going to be the primary focus of our conversation today, the first quarter of our conversation today. I will suggest that the detour will be in operation until the project, looks like people can put on their videos. I'll do the same thing so I don't feel like I'm talking to myself. There we are. Thank you. Good to see you all. Will be in operation until the mirrored service of the bus service ends. I'm not guaranteeing that there will be a mirrored bus service. However, at the completion of stage 1, OC Transpo determined the importance of a mirrored bus service for some weeks following the opening of the system. That's why I mention this now. The Scott Street detour will involve taking buses from the transitway and putting them onto Scott Street, the Scott Street extension, across the trench, onto the Workman detour, and onto the SJAM Parkway. But it also means that there is going to be enhanced and upgrades for other people who enjoy to use Scott Street or do use Scott Street and maybe didn't enjoy it for a while. We are expanding the MUP on the north side to 4-meter westbound cycle track and sidewalk. On the south side, we've got new sidewalk and eastbound cycle tracks, new protected intersections at Churchill, as well as at Goldenrod and Smurl, new bus priority phasing and lanes at a few key intersections. Unlike in stage 1, we are not expanding Scott Street in its entirety to make it a 4-lane, to add that extra lane. And the Westboro Station temporary transitway stops, which will be in effect until the mirrored bus service ends. This first image that we have today demonstrates the progress at Goldenrod Bridge. Now, this is directly at the western limit of the bus loop that we created in stage 1. What I can say here is that this photo that was taken yesterday shows a near completed bridge with but a few elements left to be connected. And its intended use is to facilitate the Scott Street bus detour. On the south side of Scott Street, I mentioned cycle track and sidewalk. Here's an image at Gilchrist and Scott that demonstrates exactly what sort of facilities you'll see from Churchill to Tunney's, which as someone who used to live in the area and remembered walking through non-sidewalks to get from Westboro Station home, this would have been a welcome addition for me, and I certainly hope it will be for you. I mentioned the temporary Westboro Station. We can see the existing Westboro Station in the back. However, the westbound lanes would involve these stops. This station is now available for local routes only. When the June 26th Scott Street detour begins, that is when we are going to see the entirety of the east-west fleet using this as the Westboro Station. There is still some work to do that is why we are not opening this bus detour yet, but there is some work to do. So we do have upcoming in May for a 2-week period, some utility works that will be detouring Scott Street at all eastbound Scott Street vehicles. Pardon me. Scott Street will be closed at Churchill for all eastbound vehicles, and they will be directed to use other routes for this 2-week period. Westbound traffic will be maintained, as will pedestrian connectivity. A photo again from yesterday. Unlike the majority of the new signal stands that have been installed along Scott Street, these are still bagged. They are for one of our new to be protected intersections, and I know really looked forward to by the community. And they will be operational as soon as finishing works are completed, well in advance of the Scott Street tour. Now, taking a little jaunt north to the top of Churchill as it approaches the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway, we can see the beginnings of the Churchill underpass. It is coming along incredibly well. You might be wondering why there's an underpass but no road on top of it. That doesn't make much sense. Aha, unless of course you'll remember that we once at the outset of this project realigned Scott Street, realigned SJAM Parkway in order to allow for tunnel construction, because the eastbound SJAM lanes were in conflict with our tunnel alignment. Once the SJAM is put back into its alignment, it will run over top the underpass, and the underpass for pedestrians and cyclists will work as intended. Currently, we do have an anticipated opening date, late 2023. I will ensure that I know that Ethel and Megan will continue to keep the community and the councilor's office apprised with the progress of this very important connection. And coming back down to our Scott Street detour, this is a pretty amazing photograph. One, I think it's a high quality image I'm a big fan of. But what we can see here is the temporary transitway built along the north side, the south side of the transitway, the temporary bus bridge, effectively in the same location where Roosevelt Pedestrian Bridge was installed, and where Roosevelt Pedestrian Bridge will be reinstalled at the completion of this project. And this temporary bus bridge continues along to the remainder, the Workman detour, before connecting onto the SJAM. What we will have are temporary sound mitigating panels installed up along and all along. And more information will be shared about that in the coming months as well. Now, I wanted to provide residents with an opportunity to understand sort of the footprint, because we spend our time like, okay, well, this construction, I can't really see how this affects much of anything, but I can tell you that effectively here you're going to find yourself with the Kitchissippi Station head house, and then you've got track level down below, and that's what we see here: the head house with the track level expanding there. I will be pointing this out. This is the track, and this is where the ramp or slope begins. For approximately 40 to 45 meters, the train will progress in a 5% slope before it reaches a depth of approximately 10 meters as it continues souterrain. Upcoming works that we can expect if we live around Kitchissippi Station: electrical works, which are going to upgrade the conduit, which will provide sufficient power to the station. Rock breaking and line drilling, we're anticipating April through June. Why do we need to break the rock if the station is going within the existing trench? Because the head house requires a wider footing. The head house requires that we have connectivity to the lower level. in the scope of elevators and stairs. Thus, we need to ensure that we have the width in addition to the track alignment. This does not mean we've shifted the station. We have not shifted the station. Station construction is anticipated to begin in late summer, early fall, 2022. I am now going to belabor some points for the benefit of people listening. Kitchissippi Station is being constructed in the same footprint that was described during the environmental assessment, otherwise known as the EA, and the planning phase for the Stage 2 project. Kitchissippi Station will require a slight widening of the trench to accommodate the head house. The alignment east of Kitchissippi Station is the same alignment as the EA or environmental assessment, as the planning phase, as the IFC drawings, which are issued for construction. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to be speaking down, and I am not, but I am aware that there is some misinformation out there, and I'm going to do my best to arm you with proper, useful, correct information. Thank you. I described that we do have some electrical works for Kitchissippi Station. They are anticipated to begin the weeks of May 2nd, ending the May 30th. Hydro Ottawa does not anticipate outages. Hydro Ottawa will be excavating a 1 meter trench along that blue line down Dominion K. They will be providing steel plates over the excavation of any homeowner that requests this to have access. They will be backfilling their excavations as they move down the work area, and they will do finishing works, reinstating lawns and driveways at the completion of these works. Now here we are just slightly east of Kitchissippi Station. Ta-da, Kitchissippi Station. This is the track alignment, drawing your attention to IFC issued for construction alignment and EA alignment. Environmental assessment. We have a westbound and eastbound. They are in the same place as they were. This is a drawing that I had our GIS guy develop specifically to demonstrate that purpose and point for this. The blue is exactly where the beginning of the ramp where the ramp will begin, again at a 5% slope into the tunnel, about 45 meters west of here. The south side pathway. This is a very important pathway. You may remember in previous presentations, I had a slide that discussed the north side pathway of the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway will remain open throughout construction, whereas the south side pathway was unable to be maintained and retained due to its, at times, conflicting nature with the alignment. The NCC, acknowledging that the project was going to impede the opportunity for this pathway to remain open, allowed the project to close it and designed a new pathway to be built when the space and the project allowed for it. Currently, this pathway is planned for, and it is meant to be delivered, if I'm not mistaken, this summer. And this is going to be an important connectivity piece between Rochester Field and Kitchissippi Station. Once it has the opportunity to extend all the way to Cleary, it will do that again. However, this is the first step and a very exciting step because we all believe so strongly in connecting our communities with the infrastructure that we're. Of course, I've spoken at times about new crossings of the SJAM Parkway. I'll go into more detail later on in the presentation. However, at Kitchissippi Station, this is a signalized crossing of the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. There is, of course, an underpass further north of here at Churchill, which we just saw. There's another signalized crossing at Rochester Field, as well as another underpass that is a few years away at Cleary. Now, removing ourselves from the theoretical and the drawings, we're back here in the reality, and I am blown away at the progress from the last time I talked to you. Here we have all of the tiebacks been installed. We are almost 50% complete excavation of the Parkway Tunnel, about approximately 45% at this point. We find ourselves that we've managed to connect Rochester Field and cut and cover all the way to Richmond Road. Concrete tunnel boxes have started in the east, starting with the inverted slabs, which are the floors. Then we will find ourselves with the walls, and then, of course, the top of the box, which is the roof of the tunnel or the floor of the earth that will backfill above it. And there is a flag that overnight construction work will be required between Cleary and Rochester Field. It has been, it will continue to be. And Kev is continuing to monitor the levels, ensuring that it is compliant with the noise exemption permit that they have. A little further east of where we just were, from a slightly different perspective, where you can actually see the progress in the excavations. You can see as we approach Richmond Road, of course, none of this is being done in a bubble. And yes, this is challenging for many people. And we thank you so much for your patience, be it where you live or where you commute to or how you commute. Thank you. And as we now approach over to Cleary, what I would like to point out is the 1,200 meter water main that has been ongoing since November or December of 21. That is nearing completion, expected to be completed this month. It might bleed into May, but really we're at the tail end of this very important work that once is done will open the, forgive the expression, floodgates for other excavations to occur down the line, which have been put on hold to ensure that this important piece of infrastructure is protected. Also pointing out that there are upcoming detours on Richmond Road late this summer. We anticipate Richmond Road to be reduced by a lane in order to accommodate some utilities work. We'll get you some more information on that as that gets closer to time. Here we find ourselves at Sherbourne Station in Byron Linear Park. West of Cleary, the excavation is largely completed and the concrete works for Sherbourne Station are currently underway. Now, I am providing updates to individuals who are interested in understanding the schedule, the road closures for the concrete pours of the Byron Linear Park Tunnel. If you're interested in being added to that distribution list for the Byron Linear Park Tunnel only, please feel free to email me at damon.berlin@ottawa.ca. I'll gladly add you to the list. And basically, I'm working closely with Kev. Kev is providing us generally a day ahead confirmation of a pour. I'm able to send an email out the day before identifying between what blocks the closure is going to be, how many trucks are going to be involved, the expected start time, the expected end time. This has been a big help to a lot of people in and around the Byron Avenue area. And now, just to belabor the connectivity point, because I know it's so important to our counselors on this call, as well as to the staff and the residents primarily. While I pointed out that we do have the Churchill North underpass, we saw a picture of that. This just demonstrates Churchill Avenue. I was looking at this image and I thought, you know, it's clear to me, but maybe not clear to everyone else. This is the footprint for Kitchissippi Station. This is the crossing of the SGM Parkway. This is Rochester Field. There's a signalized crossing right at Rochester Field as well. And then at Cleary, there's an underpass. Now the underpass won't be available until 2024, and we are anticipating the Churchill North in 2023. Again, any updates on those dates will be provided to the community as we understand how eager everyone is to get to the river safely. Pathways, I want to simply point out again that we are anticipating the construction of the pathway that the NCC designed this spring, hopefully available to the public this summer. And that is going to bring people from Rochester Field to Kitchissippi Station. Of course, when the space has been made east of Rochester Field, that pathway too will be constructed and open to the public. But that is ways away. As you recall, the photos from about 6 slides ago of some very impressive cut and cover work, but that is effectively exactly where that pathway is. I know we are now at the outskirts of our area, but I do like this slide, and I do think it's important for those of you who haven't joined us before, that we have so many opportunities for signalized and PXOs, or pedestrian crossings, along Richmond Road that are going to be installed with the complete street project that will be undertaken in the coming years. And lastly, as a final piece of infrastructure, and this won't be seen until likely 2024, but the final alignment of the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. Also an NCC design that Kev has undertaken to reconstruct at the outset, at the completion of their tunnel construction. This sort of messaging is important that we remind everyone about this, but we do have, with spring and the half load restrictions removed, all of the excavations and all of the construction, you're going to see an increased level of vehicles. Those trucks are required to use city approved routes or traffic control plan approved routes. There will be vibration, of course. However, that vibration should be well within limits that should never bother your infrastructure of your home or your apartments. Noise and vibration is always part of construction. Have monitors at their loudest and busiest points and reports those findings to the project. And we can make that available if there are residents who are feeling like something is not right. Well, we can get the data and we can demonstrate that. And I think that's a wonderful resource that Kevin's been providing. And that's a great resource for everybody involved. In the winter, we had heaters to help cure the concrete. And now we have generators to pump out the infiltrating groundwater. There are regular requirements to use machinery overnight just to ensure the excavation of the construction. And without the snow, we don't winter maintain anymore. Now we got to start cleaning streets. I know that Kev walks a tightrope, and we've talked about this a few times, but street sweeping and street washing are high on their list of things to get done. They're high on community interest. I will point out that resident A who lives here will say, I need my street washed. And resident B will say, all you've done is make mud on my street. And then they say, all I want is street sweeping. And then resident A will say, all you've done is kick up dust on my property. So I simply want to point out that they are doing what they feel is best for each location. And I do receive, and so does Ethel, comments from the community that what they're doing is not good enough. I will say they try hard. And when you tell us that there's been a lack of cleaning at an area, which occurred last year, well, then I was giving that information to Jamie and Jen, and they were quickly getting the sweeping company out there, cleaning it up. So I want you to understand that there is a direct correlation between you contacting us and Kev doing work that will benefit the people around. And construction hours, of course, in the city of Ottawa, Monday through Saturday, you can start work at 7, you can finish at 10. If Kev has an active permit, which they do, then they can work overnight. That does require that they provide notice. And I know that that they've been providing weekly summaries of night work in the wards in the West. And I think that Tom's been sharing that. Overnight, you do have vehicles being fueled and maintained. Construction lighting, of course, if you're working overnight, you do need to see. However, Kev makes every effort to not direct at homes. So sometimes that's not possible, in which case they have shades and or other blockers. If you do feel like it's being directed into your home, let us know. We'll work with Kev to fix that. Lastly, I want to say thank you. I'm not Ethel Craft. She is nicer and prettier than I am. However, I'm happy to sit here and talk to you and explain this project and hopefully provide some clarity and some information and some insight as to what's happening beside, in front, or around your homes. And with that, I want to say thank you. And I want to say we are now available to take your questions. Of course, I see that 24 have been answered in the chat while I've been speaking. So I'll let Tom take it from here. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Damon. It is indeed time for the Q&A. And we will start with a question from Dr. Garcia. And he does have several here. For the Kitchissippi area, Kitchissippi Station area, please confirm if any further tree cutting is expected.
I'll defer that question to Jamie Robinson. Any further tree cutting in the Kitchissippi area anticipated? You're just on mute right now, Jamie.
Yep.
There you go.
No, in the Kitchissippi area that I'm aware of, we did the last tree removals, as folks are aware of, when we to make space for the new pathway.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And Dr. Garcia does have a number of other questions, but we will try to get everyone in as well. So I am now going to go to some questions from Roland Dorsey. He also has tree-related questions for Jamie. We'll do them one at a time. What is the current status of Kev's tree replanting plan, Jamie?
So I know there's a couple of there, so I'll just talk a little bit about the so we a couple of things. We've got to prepare landscaping plans and packages for the city. We've currently prepared a number of those and have provided them to the city. The tree compensation report, which is probably more of more interest and more relevant, where people are sort of looking at that, as well as in terms of that's where we sort of where we know there's an interest in terms of what trees are going where and how many trees are going where. We have we're working on that now. I understand it's going to be available early this summer. This spring summer, and again we'll provide that to the city, and then the city will determine what it is they want to do with that in terms of engaging the canine group and providing that to folks for their input and feedback.
Just to point out, so Jamie, when you say providing the draft to the city for the community to understand the processes, Kev will do a development. City will review, it'll go back and forth. The first submittal, and what we don't do is we don't take drafts to the public because they are so prone to change. So while we might have just heard summer for the first draft, that doesn't mean we'll be in a position in the summer necessarily to come to the community with this information.
Yep.
Okay.
Were there others there, Tom? But I think
Yeah,
that those
yeah.
those in a nutshell.
Yeah, I believe so. There were questions about obviously when the plan will be presented, plan to engage the community associations, residents about the tree replanting plan, and receptive to meeting with area community associations to provide an update on the tree replanting plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing that I'd add, maybe, I think that we did a bit of a calculation, I think, in terms of because we've got the 2-for-1, and folks are aware of that requirement that if we remove a tree, we've got to replace it at a 2-for-1. So I think that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,900 trees that are going to be going back into Ward 15.
If I may, Roland, I had a conversation with the team around that. I know that there is some thought in the ward that the number of trees replanted may not be in proportion to the number of trees removed on a ward by ward basis. And so I have asked Kev to give us a written commitment that the tree replacement in Kitchissippi will be proportional to the level of tree loss that we had in our ward. So I appreciate you raising that, and I'm awaiting that commitment.
Okay, thank you. We will go to Bob Thompson's question. Bob writes, the more southerly track alignment chosen is going to cause several months of bedrock removal at Kitchissippi Station with a lot of resulting noise and disruption in the neighborhood, as well as greater expense over the guideway entry to the transitway trench at the current entrance for buses. So the question is, why was this chosen over the existing transitway alignment? Why were these changes not advertised until recently?
Hi, Bob. Thank you for asking this question. I did feel like I was fairly clear in the presentation. However, we haven't shifted. We have not shifted the alignment. I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you got the information from, but it is not from the city. We've not shifted the alignment, not from the environmental assessment. Tracks, unlike buses, have a restriction on the type of curves it can make because they don't make sharp turns like buses. As such, what may not be obvious to me as a non-engineer would actually make a lot of sense to an engineer who designs tracks. And so what the project is doing is constructing the alignment as per the environmental assessment and the plan statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question from John. What would be the height of the building at Kitchissippi Station?
Jamie, do you have dimensions on height? That wasn't something that I thought to prepare for this. I apologize.
No, I don't, Damon. That's something that I know that we can. We've certainly got some schematics that we didn't put on tonight because it was going to make it a little bit bigger, but we can look at how we can provide those to folks so they can get a sense of if they're standing there on Dominion and they're looking at the station and the what it's going to look like. We've got CAD drawings that will show that.
Okay. Next up from the McKellar Park Community Association, will north-south pedestrian access at Kitchissippi Station be maintained throughout construction?
Do you want to run that one by again? Say that
The
again.
north-south access either at Churchill or at SJAM? Is that the question?
The question is, will north-south pedestrian access at Kitchissippi Station be maintained throughout construction?
Right now, there is no north-south because we removed the Roosevelt pedestrian bridge. In advance of that, we did always advertise that the pedestrian detour would either be on the west side of the trench, up the Parkway side, or at Churchill North. That plan, as far as I'm aware, hasn't changed. We will have new pathways east, west, south of the new transitway that's being constructed. But north-south, what is today is tomorrow until we rebuild the Roosevelt pedestrian bridge.
Just gonna add on a bit, Damon.
Thank you,
If
Bowden.
they mean right at Dominion Station, where the lights with SJM are, I believe that connection is going to be maintained from the very west end of Workman over to the Dominion and Berkeley Avenue. That connection there will be maintained, which I believe is in a north-south orientation.
Okay, thank you, Bowden. Another question, comment from Dr. Garcia. Neighbors on Berkeley and Dominion would like to request a station-specific community engagement. Jamie, can we do that? Don't see why not.
I certainly have no issues. That's really that's something more for you and the council, the city. But pleased to support that as necessary. And then we can. I think that the plan is that from this perspective, I mean, Damon covered an awful lot, and we take if there was follow-up questions and real site-specific stuff, then get a smaller group together and have those conversations. I think would be we'd be pleased to support that.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, we already have a Dominion Station working group, don't we, Tom, Councillor? We enjoyed that group, and we'd be more than happy to reinitiate that group and add new members.
100%. Daniel Buckles writes, and my first concern is with the outcomes. It seems evident from the finished state of Tunney's and Westboro stations and from the finished Scott Street bus shelters that shade for pedestrian walkways is entirely absent. This is a poor outcome from a heat island and pedestrian perspective. If this is reproduced along all LRT lines, we will end up with a poorly protected transit service and one which will not be pleasant to access by foot. So I think this
hear a question.
Yeah, no,
I can say that we will have a landscape plan that we'll share, and I don't know what it will look like, but yes, that was a comment that you had shared at our K9 tree meeting as well. So thank you for allowing Kev to hear that as well. Thank you.
Benetro writes, please confirm whether the pathway between Cleary and Kitchissippi will be open for people using bikes.
The south side pathway has always been a pedestrian pathway, whereas the north side MUP on the river's edge has always been the shared facility for cyclists and pedestrians. The NCC's design, again, has the pathway being narrower than a city standard MUP. Therefore, the south side pathway is meant for pedestrians to enjoy walking without the concern about bikes.
Next up, I see a question from Cheryl Parrott. Now it's about street cleaning around Bayview Station. So obviously that's under the scope of what this meeting is. But I can tell you, Cheryl, that I am working with the stakeholder relations representative for the Trillium Line on that, and we hope to have resolution on that very, very soon. Duff Mitchell writes regarding Rochester Field. First question, when will it no longer be required as a laydown area for LRT 2 construction? And the second question is, when will it be ready for handover back to the NCC?
It's a good question, and I like the double side, because Kev is entitled to that land until the end of the project. Will Kev require that land until the end of the project? That's the great question, which is what I will defer to Jamie. And I don't think that he'll have the ability to answer a 4-year down the line question like that. However, we got him, so let's ask him.
Yeah, Damon, you hit it. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I mean, it's a really important site for us right now. There is as folks know, there's a lack of available land for laydown area across the in this particular area. So we've got that, and we're using that. Right now, a lot of trucks are going in and out of that when we as we excavate the tunnel, and my sense is it's likely the end of the project. But again, if we can, as soon as we're finish up with the cut and cover and begin to do all the sort of restoration, I mean, that'll sort of be part of it as well. So we can look into that and get some broader date than I provided, but leave that with me.
Okay, thank you. Eric Pusey writes, when is the excavation of the Parkway Tunnel going to be occurring in the remaining section between Rochester Field and the large curve towards Cleary?
Great question, Eric. The excavation has been underway and it is ongoing. I asked the same question, do we have an anticipated end to the excavation today? But truly what Kev stated at the beginning of these works, at the beginning of this year, is that this was going to be a one-year program to undertake to excavate and build the Parkway Tunnel, including its concrete pours. There's been no clarity beyond that. At this point, what we do know is that they're starting to do concrete pours at the Rochester Field area. We saw in those images, we've got those tiebacks occurring behind 727, and then some more excavation to occur in the Cleary area of the former 747 site. But if you think about it, they're at 45% of the excavation in 3.5 months. That's a pretty incredible feat as well. So 4.5 months, I'm not so good at counting sometimes, but I do anticipate seeing the remainder of that over the next few months as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Chris Hughes writes, track fasteners are a major concern of us, and us being folks along Richmond Road, due to the proximity of the track and the curve in the track. What criteria are used to determine the type of fasteners that will be used? What influence will residents have over the types that are being used? And when will this choice be made?
It's a very good question. What happens is that Kev has been, based on the contract they signed, required to undertake noise and vibration studies from Moody to Trim, not including stage 1. Kev has been working through their drafts of the noise studies, and we've been going through exercises in Ward 7 with that. But what I want you to know is it is the results of the studies to ensure that they are compliant city and provincial standards that determine the type of infrastructure that is utilized. There is not an opportunity for community involvement in the sense of I'd rather see a resilient fastener to a X. We have Kev's noise report. We use a third-party validation. The city has undertaken that at our own dime, and that's how we're able to identify what is required and where. There's also a vibration report. That's not as far along, to my understanding, as the noise report. So when will you be given a choice? I'm not trying to be flippant or rude, but I'm sorry, that's not something that is brought to the community for a choice. However, it is something that can be brought to the community as a presentation as to what can be expected. That is something I'm doing in Ward 7, and I'm sure we could totally organize here.
Thank you. David Mowbray, Westboro Beach area, is writing about the concrete blocks that did suddenly appear along Workman. And I was wondering about that too. I'm out there every day checking for cycling and pedestrian connectivity and accessibility issues, and it was certainly a shock to me. So the question is why no one was informed in advance or any explanation was given as to why these concrete blocks were installed.
It's a very good question. Jamie, I'm going to defer to you, sir.
I honestly don't know. I'll have to get back to you. That's a question I don't know the answer to. So we'll make note of that and get back to folks. There was a bunch of them over at Churchill as well. You can see from the photograph that Damon presented. So again, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah.
But I do get the sense, sorry, Tom, is it the case that the community on Workman would like to receive greater updates as to what's occurring there, that saying that it's not sufficient, or this one specific thing is the issue? And if that's the case, then that's something we should be talking about.
Well, I think there are a couple issues here. First of all, my understanding is that the fencing that was there had fallen over from time to time and had landed on some parked cars. and maybe the concrete was installed to prevent that from happening. But the bigger issue from our standpoint is that it narrows the road further, and it does play a role in our decisions on some of the temporary traffic calming that we plan on putting in later this year. So when these decisions are made, you know, we need to be involved in it through Bowden's team and through our office and through the residents.
Absolutely. Tom, are they concrete blocks or temporary concrete barriers, TCBs?
They don't look very temporary. They're pretty big.
Are they Jersey?
You know what I mean, though.
They're Jersey barriers. I was looking.
Yeah,
They're
not
Jersey
Jersey
barriers from what I
Okay.
saw.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Another suggestion from Danielle Buckles about the potential of bringing a draft landscape plan to the public. Daniel feels that that is when it can be adjusted in light of community perspective.
Thank you, Daniel. I do believe we answered that question at the K9 Tree Group, and I do appreciate you asking for the community. It allows everyone to hear this answer.
Dr. Garcia wondering whether there will be more pre-construction surveys.
You don't want me to answer, Tom?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, absolutely.
I was just taking a deep breath.
I'm terribly sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Maybe too much of a pregnant pause.
There are a lot to get through, so I was just trying to.
What we have is an opportunity to work with Kev as the city staff, to work with Kev, the expert, landscape architects, people who have been doing this for entire careers, to help work on the landscape plans. Once we have an approved landscape plan, then we will present those to the community. Absolutely. But I get the feeling that there is a mistrust that people at the city don't care. And I live in the city and I work for the city and I do care. And our landscape architect, she lives in the city and she does care. None of us are working to spite the community. We all are working for the community. Please know that. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dr. Garcia writes, will there be more pre-construction surveys? We have had lots of rock breaking.
If you were not offered an opportunity for a precondition survey, then we should connect. However, that was undertaken in 2019 and 2020. I don't know if construction has already begun and then there's a precondition survey, the validity of what pre-existed, I don't know. But I'll leave it to Jamie.
Damon, I think, sorry, this is Jeff.
Hi, Councilor.
Hi. The excavation of like a meter or two of the rock face around Dominion was not something that we were expecting, right? And that rock breaking is, it's going to be extensive work. And Diego's house is like, right there, as are a number of other residents. And it strikes me that the nature of the work implies that there should be some sort of a pre-construction survey there. So we can work more closely with the residents who are in that immediate vicinity, but the nature of the work is different today than I was anticipating a couple of years ago.
Okay, and I guess we can have Jen confirm this after the fact. She's got some great reports as to where all the letters were posted, and I'm pretty sure that it was within the zone of influence across the entire alignment, regardless of the type of work, but I leave it to Kev to speak to that.
Yeah, and so let me just add to that. I mean, here's what let's take a look at that. If there are a number of people, for whatever reason, didn't choose to do a pre-construction survey back in 2019. The councillor is right. It again pointed out that there's going to be rock breaking in the lake, and so if we've already done one, there's no point doing another one. A pre-construction survey is a pre-construction survey. If some folks within the zone of influence had declined to do one back in back in 2019. Let's take a look at that. We can get the contractor in pretty quickly to do that in the next couple of weeks and get them to complete that work, get all the photos taken inside and outside, just to give people a little bit of peace in mind as we begin to get into the next phase of work at Kitchissippi Station or others.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought at the at the foot of Beverly and Dominion 2 years ago, that it was going to be particularly relevant. But I have a significantly different view of that in light of needing to take some rock away from that face. So, and I'm more than happy to talk to residents about the advisability of doing pre-construction surveys. My strong advice is to get it done. It is for your protection and for the cities to have that neutral third party with a sealed record of the condition of your home prior to work that has the potential to create damage.
Yeah.
Further to that, if you're able to take any recordings or images that are date stamped, time stamped, that is effectively what DST, which is the third party, undertakes. That is better than nothing, depending on what is occurring. So if you're concerned about vibrations and you're sensing something, start recording. Absolutely.
Yeah. And sorry, one final thing is that it just as a reminder and give some thought to it too, is that even though we didn't even though a lot of people just purely didn't respond, we would have, the contractor would have gone around and done an exterior survey in any event. And so we'll have that on. But I think that the important thing is to get people in to go in, and now let's go in and do the interior, because then that's where you can sort of notice any cracks in drywall and stuff like that. Of course, it's the pre-construction survey it will be on a go forward basis, right? It's as of when that's done. So looking into the future. So it becomes a little bit more difficult if something that may have been alleged to have occurred, call it the last few months when we've been out there doing work in the area and stuff like that. But that's something that folks
I'm less concerned about the work that's been done than what is to come. And I would suggest that we should be sure to offer anybody a second opportunity to get that pre-construction survey prior to the beginning of much heavier construction.
Understood. Yeah.
Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, our next question comes from Chris Burke. Westboro Beach is scheduled to be closed this summer. Will the MUP, that's the multi-use path, on the north side of the parkway be detoured around this?
My understanding, the work that's going to close Westboro Beach is NCC work and not stage 2 work. I have not seen a connectivity plan from the NCC, so I don't know if anyone else around the table has seen that. But otherwise, it's something.
They've committed to having that north side MUP open. There may be occasions when vehicles are crossing, construction vehicles, in which case there will be flags. But no, my understanding is that the NCC is committed to keeping that MUP open. It's obviously one of our key spine routes, and we want Teresa to be able to get to work.
Another question from Roland Darcy for Jeff. Has anyone expressed interest in air rights to develop residential buildings above any of the LRT stations?
Not to my knowledge. That's a big question. They wouldn't approach me, probably. They would approach the city's real estate department. They would approach the mayor. But I've never heard of anybody who's expressed interest in doing that. It's obviously a topic of discussion. I don't think we have a lot of time this evening to try to get into that. I'm looking at the questions, and there's still 62 of them. But Roland, let's chat offline about that.
Roland, during the LeBreton Flats development that didn't happen, they had a rendering of development on top of the track west of Tennessee. That wasn't in conjunction or coordination with the city by any means. Listen to the council.
Next up from Bob Houston, what noise mitigation measures are planned for the temporary bus route along Workman Avenue?
As committed to in the planning stage, temporary noise barrier will be installed in advance of the West Transitway detour and will be in place until the end of the bus detour, at which point it will be removed. We will be, that was a bit light on detail, and I know not like what I've been doing, so I'm not trying to be cagey. What I do want to say is that we have a commitment to meet with Councillor Leeper in the coming weeks. Once we've done that, we'll have a communications piece and maybe even a meeting to help explain what can be expected for Workman residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Damon. Lou Travis writes, when the tunnel progresses under Richmond Road at Cleary Avenue towards the Sherbourne Station, the Richmond-Cleary intersection will obviously be closed. Do we have an idea when this will commence and how long is the closure anticipated? When Richmond Road is closed at Cleary, how will traffic be directed to enter, exit from the Continental Condo Building, the Unitarian House and Unitarian Church to proceed east-west on Richmond Road?
Okay, there's a lot of questions based upon a false premise. Richmond Road will not close. Richmond Road will be reduced, just like when we cut across Richmond Road at the western end of the Byron Tunnel. We haven't closed Richmond. We have shifted Richmond, and we've shifted Richmond, and we've shifted Richmond, but we have not closed Richmond. We've always had 2 lanes available. And that is how we will be rolling out the cut and cover activities on the east side of the linear. Details when they are available will be shared more specifically. Again, that's a high level. When we have dates, when we have known traffic controls, those will be shared with the community, absolutely.
Okay, great. Next from Dr. Garcia, wondering who sits on the Dominion Station Working Group. I'll handle this one. There is a list of folks who were on the group in the planning phase. When we start those group meetings again in the construction, I will reach out to them. But the bottom line is anyone who lives in proximity of Dominion Station is welcome to join the working group. Hugh Robillard, you mentioned that the current Dominion Station crossing will remain open during construction. How will we get across at the current Dominion Station crossing north-south when the rail grading and tracks are being put in?
That's a good question. Bowden?
I'm not sure of 100% the details of how it will be maintained. The tracks are partially underground, so within a tunnel, where there's appropriate staging drawings that the constructor is going to complete so that this crossing does maintain open.
And so the important knowledge is that it will remain open, and there are engineers who will figure out on how to do that, and will communicate how that will happen once we've been informed.
Next question, when construction is completed, will there be access from the multi-use path on the south side of the tracks to the north side path west of the station near where the existing traffic light is? Or is a cyclist required to go to the Roosevelt Bridge to cross?
Sorry, maybe I need to read that. I don't, you can cross this, you can cross with traffic controls or segregated crossings at Churchill North, at Kitchissippi Station, at Rochester Field, and at Cleary. I don't really know which way you're going and where you're coming from, but those are all available crossings for cyclists, pedestrians, strollers, rollerbladers, cross-country skiers, depending on the season.
Chris Hughes writes that we would like to have a working group for the Sherbourne Rochester Field area. Can this be reconstituted? Absolutely. We had one, we called it the Cleary Working Group in the planning phase, and we can start that up as well for the Sherbourne Station. The same process will apply. I will reach out to all the folks who are on the planning one, and obviously it is open to folks who want to join moving forward.
The working groups and planning are a little different from working groups in during construction. And just for anyone who sat on it before, we're not going to be weighing in on what we think methodology should be or anything like that. But what the objective is, my sweetheart, is that people will advise about issues that we can maybe help with and actually have someone from the construction team at the table to discuss that.
Carling Wood should be involved in that from Bay Ward as well.
Yeah, they actually were in the final stages of the planning. So yeah, we'll reach out. Carol Lauries writes, can we get no bike signs on the south side of the S-Jam? Would be, I believe, the NCC map, perhaps?
That would be the NCC pathway. I guess that signage in final state would be with the NCC.
Yep.
I think, Tom, you could send a nice email and sort that out pretty easy.
Yep. Bill is wondering what is going to happen to the culvert or water main in Riverwood Estates that drains to the Ottawa River under the Parkway.
Where's the Riverwood Estate, Tom?
That is an excellent question. I do not know what the Riverwood Estates are off the top of my head.
We are not closing any culverts that currently flow into the river. We have upgraded certain culverts that flow into the river. If that's a concern, that's what happens. I'm not sure though, I'm sorry.
Bill is also wondering whether this session is going to delve into the Scott Street plan up to June 26th.
The plan is in how buses will operate.
Well, up to June 26th seems like the construction plan and you know, where the work is going to happen, when it's going to happen.
Noise.
Noise, for sure.
I believe that updates are currently being shared and that'll continue to occur. Yep.
Yep.
The right people are listening to that question for that to happen, absolutely.
Can you provide a brief overview of what that work is? I think it's relatively well described in the city notice that went out to describe the postponement of the detour, that there is, sidewalks and MUP and signalization work that has to happen. But can you just give us a brief overview of what that work is? And if you have some rough phasing, that would be helpful as well.
So I can just give a high level without the rough phasing, but we do have to complete the tie-ins of all of the south sidewalks and cycle tracks.
Sorry, the tie-ins?
Well, that's not complete from Churchill to Tunney's. That will be completed before the detour. We will also widen and resurface the current MUP on the north side. And we will complete the signal work at Churchill, unbag those signals. And Jamie, are there anything else that I've missed on that you want to highlight, please?
Yeah, so we've got all the all the paving work to go from Churchill West to the temporary bridge that's in place there. So all that work has to take place, and then we have to look at the whole issue of paving and line painting and all that stuff across the entire corridor. Right, if you drive along Scott Street right now, it's the lines are pretty difficult to see, and so that's all got to be fixed. And so a lot of work that has to take place. You've got that big piece of infrastructure, Damon, you described with the water main at Westboro Station. So those are largely at its the 2 months between the original plan to do it in April to June really just gave us a really good opportunity to complete a lot of that work over the course of the next couple of months, so that we're and everything's great for June, particularly the connectivity piece, and there's no connectivity lost with the MUPs and the like. So.
Yeah, the frustration my office and certainly residents have experienced with respect to loss of pedestrian connectivity through the corridor as things have been constructed. The Taggart work in the same corridor has not helped. When the multi-use path is being widened, is that going to happen after the sidewalk and cycle track on the south side are fully ready to use?
I'm pretty sure that's the sequence that we're gonna complete everything on the south side before going to the north. But I think that the fair statement will be is that there will be there'll always be connectivity east-west. So, but there may be some times that due to work that people may have to shift north or shift south as things are taking place. But things will always be open across the way, but for particular periods of time.
Yeah, we don't want to see pedestrians having to walk in the road, or cyclists, particularly young cyclists, having to use the road. There needs to always be that connectivity, and you've got a few more months now to sort of stage it well. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Carol Laurie is wondering what will be the view from Berkeley Dominion to the river when the transitway takes the slope from Rochester Field to Kitchissippi Station.
So I would, if I may, Damon, that's some of those CAD drawings that I think we can share with the working group, and then however you decide you want to sort of you put them up more broadly. As I said, we've done some really good stuff that shows, because people are interested in a few things. They're interested in the station and the like, and where we see where that's, folks saw from your one image where that's situated. We can show from street level what the height of that will be. As you head west, you've got the certain tracks running at surface coming out of the station, and then they go into the portal, and you describe the portal going for about approximately 45 to 50 meters, and so people will understand as they're going along the MUP and they see the portal, there's fencing there, right? As the grade goes down, so the fencing is call it 6 to 7 feet high. That people so there's barriers at the bottom and then fencing at the top, and that's really to protect the people from getting into the portal. So there's some of the stuff. So we've again, when we do that smaller group or however, and we've got those really good CAD drawings that can go right down to surface level, and so people will have a good sense of what they're looking at.
Can I, I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in for a second. I'm looking at the Q&A, and there's a number of people asking about membership in the various working groups. The text functions of Zoom are a little bit limited. In order to make sure that you're getting a question about, can I join the group and which group, etc., please send Tom an email, because we may well lose some of these questions if it's only posed that way. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. All right, Denny Paul is apologizing for joining late. That's okay. He says, if there was a PowerPoint presentation or written update at the beginning, will it be available later? Absolutely. So Damon will share it with me. I will put it up on our blog, kitchissippiward.ca. This meeting is being recorded. It will be up on YouTube at some point tomorrow. And on our blog post, not only will we have the PowerPoint presentation, but we will have this video for you to watch at your leisure. Dr. Garcia, right, so some of the noise barrier green panels at Dominion Kitchissippi have fallen off. A request to Kev to do housekeeping and keeping construction materials tidy.
Yep, 100%. We'll get on that. One thing that we totally understand that they come down and wind and stuff like that. We've largely completed that phase of the work as neighbors know there. So we'll make sure that we make note to get out there and reattach some of those echo barriers that get blown around a little bit, and we'll do that. Thank you.
Chris Hughes writes, vibration studies were made for 727 Richmond in December. We have asked repeatedly for the results. When specifically will these be available?
So Chris, I can jump in here. We have received the finalized report. I mentioned, it's a combined report with 1190 Richmond. We have to do some redacting to not show the different ownerships. We want to separate the report out. So one would be specific to 727. The other one would be specific to 1190. We are doing our best. We understand we did indicate February we would get it to you. Unfortunately, with COVID and staffing issues, it's been delayed, but we are working on it. And as I mentioned today in my email, I hope to have this to you by the end of the month.
Thank you, John. Carol writes, when large tandem trucks bring mud down to the station at Dominion, it would be helpful for the large pieces to be shoveled before a sweeper does its job, considering people with allergies and asthma.
That's a good suggestion, Carol. I'm glad that Jamie heard it, and Jamie can take that away to the team that is responsible for maintaining the roads.
Yep,
thank you.
100%. Yep.
Danielle Buckles wondering why there's reluctance to engage with the community in review of a draft landscape plan that links tree species to tree locations and function.
During the planning stage of the stage 2, what we did is we consulted with the community. This is the design and construction stage. There is no opportunity for consultation in the design and construction phase of a design and construction model. I'm sorry, Daniel. I know that this is what we talked about at the K9 group. You did hang up early, so perhaps that message wasn't received, but unfortunately, there is no opportunity for consultation. In fact, one could ask, like, why wouldn't a third party get to consult on roadway designs, like a bike advocacy group? Well, the contract doesn't provide sufficient time for the city or city forces or third parties to review and get it back to Kev in order to have the design progress in a certain amount of time to allow for construction to progress. Because both things happen in tandem, that really restricts the opportunity to see more consultation from the community. However, as we discussed at the K9 tree meeting, Kev has opened up an opportunity to receive feedback from the community and requested, in fact, there's still 7 more days to get that information in. Daniel, I would highly recommend. You seem very, very passionate about it. And I'm hearing things. So if you want to see shade along Scott Street, write that. You don't need to say what kind of trees. You just say, I'd like to have shade for the pedestrian walkways on Scott Street. That's a totally reasonable comment and would certainly help Kev as they develop their plans. Thank you.
Thanks, Damon. Heather Mitchell, questions about trees. Who is responsible for replacing trees on NCC land? Second question, understand there is to be a pedestrian cross from Rochester Field to the river. Is that correct? And will it be at grade with the train in the trench?
Great questions, Heather. First question is, Kev is replacing the trees it removes on NCC land, if that's what you mean by trees on NCC land.
Yeah.
Kev provides the draft plan to the NCC and the city in that instance, and both get an opportunity to weigh in on that. With respect to the question about Rochester Field, yes, indeed, there will be a crossing. It is an at-grade crossing and it is signalized. So it will be an opportunity. In fact, when the project looked at crossings of the SJAM, we looked at desire lines that were available, and you can see where the community crosses primarily. And those 4 locations that I've identified were the most trodden crossings of the SJAM Parkway.
Okay. Next up, from Bill again. He says, Bill writes, let's try again. What is going to happen to the massive culvert or water main at 655 Richmond Road in the townhome development? That would be the Riverwood Estates from earlier. So the massive culvert at water main at 655 Richmond Road in the townhome development at Riverview Estates that currently drains into the Ottawa River under the parkway. Digging is stopped at either side. Does it get closed? How will it look?
So what it was is we replaced it. Kev replaced it before the excavation work began. That resulted in numerous bypass pumps and bypass facilities while the new infrastructure was built. So what they did is they needed to replace the corrugated pipe in order to ensure that it would maintain throughout construction. It is currently over top of the excavation. When the excavation is backfilled, it will be within the be above the tunnel box, below the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway roadway. It will continue to flow into the park, into the river, the river.
Thank you.
Sorry for not knowing the name. I apologize.
No, and I was thinking it was 655 because I was out there mucking
Oh,
around.
you were, Counselor.
Yeah. I thigh deep in muck, but anyways, I just want to make sure if the resident has not had their question answered, please send me an email, because I think there may have been some thought that the tunnel would prevent the culvert from going through. Damon, I think you've explained why the new configuration is such that it does not, the tunnel doesn't affect it. It continues uninterrupted. But please feel free to email me if there's any confusion around that. I suspect that's where the confusion lies, is that there's a tunnel, there's a culvert.
Yeah.
Have you planned it to make sure that the one doesn't interfere with the other?
Exactly. It's a great question. And it was a confusing when I was on site. I mean, it was a really interesting part of the project for me.
From Roland Dorsey, he's hearing that staff and Kev likely to go through a number of planned iterations, and only then, when the plan is no longer in draft form, will it become available for the public to see about the tree replanting. And that is concerning to Roland. And he writes, what I would like to hear from staff is an assurance that the tree replanting landscaping plan will not be frozen in concrete before area residents have had a meaningful opportunity to offer their input into the draft plan. Are you in a position to offer that assurance on behalf of city staff? If not, who is?
Thank you, Roland. I'm in a position to repeat what I said, and I'm sorry that I know that it sounds like that maybe because I have a lot of the answers, you might think that I make decisions. I don't even make decisions for the young man that was sitting on my lap earlier. I'm telling you, nobody listens to me. But I can tell you that what I've been told time and time and time again is that in a design build model project, the planning stage is when you have years upon years to consult upon what the community would like to see and where. The design and build and the design and construction side of the design and build coin, that's when we are implementing those designs. I appreciate that you would like to weigh in on the design. Roland, absolutely. I've always loved to hear your opinion. We've been working together for a lot of years. Roland, what I said to Daniel stands for you as well, to everybody. If you have an opinion about what you would like to see, I'm not talking about species of trees. I'm not talking about fruited or not. If you want shade, if you want trees, if you want sky, where do you want this? I honestly, that's the sort of thing that Jamie and Carrie from Kev, Communications and Environment, respectively, are both keen on receiving. But again, they have said April 14th. So I would very much appreciate, and I know that the community wants to have more input. I'm sorry. I really am. What I do want you to know is that you do have an opportunity to make more input. You have 7 days now. And what I would hope, Roland, that you spend that time providing those sorts of comments to Tom, myself, to share with Jamie and et al. Because I would not want the 14th to go by and there not be anything other than disappointment in the community that they can't do anything but look at a plan once it's finalized. There's an opportunity that no other community is being afforded right now, and I would love for you to take advantage of it.
Yeah, Daniel and Roland, so my advocacy is always on as much consultation and as much community influence as possible. This is a design build. It's my second round with design build projects. Stage 1 was also build design. The build design maintain in that case. This is a triple P project. The city has given a contract to Kev to build a rail line that meets certain specifications. And they're not under any obligation to consult with the community. They have to meet the terms of the contract. And their interest is in doing that. We met about the tree replacement program several weeks ago. I clearly heard the message that there wasn't going to be further consultation, but that the community was going to have the opportunity to describe in whatever level of detail they want what they would like to see, so that the folks who are designing the final tree replanting plan will have that community in front of them to inform their decisions about what to do. I would strongly encourage you to get that input in. It's been, I think, several weeks since that was in. I'm not going to be able to sit here and tell you as the counselor that I'm going to be able to pause the tree planting until the community has had an opportunity to look at the plans and weigh in on them. Provide your input as soon as possible in whatever level of detail you feel is appropriate, because I've been down this road before, and I do know very well that a triple P project like this is not like a city project where I can bring a project manager into my office and say, I need you to stop. I need you to consult, right? we're dealing with a contract, and I'm not going to delve into the politics of triple Ps tonight, but they are not the same as a city project. My strong encouragement to you, Daniel and Roland, is get that input in, please.
Thank you. Carol Lorries is asking for a description or a definition of protected intersection. For example, what we will see on the corner of Churchill and Scott.
That is a great question. And I am going to look to our traffic expert to walk us through the advantages and the elements of a protected intersection. Odin, you're up.
Hey guys, so essentially a protected intersection has phases of the intersection that have separated pedestrian and traffic signals or sequences, sorry, so that there's no conflicting movements and stuff, promotes the pedestrian movements as well as the traffic, and maintains traffic basically, and optimizes all the signal timings and everything with it.
Thank you, Bowden.
Thank you. Dr. Garcia wondering how and when the remaining questions will be answered. We are at 8 o'clock. We will go a little bit longer. But any questions that are not answered tonight, I would imagine would be covered in one of, or all three of three possible ways. First off, Ethel Kraft from Stakeholder Relations is monitoring the Q&A as we speak, and is collecting all of the information, and any questions that have not been answered tonight will be answered, given to me, put up in another blog post when those questions are all answered, kitchissippiward.ca. Now that we are beginning to reconvene the working groups, specific questions about Kitchissippi Station will certainly be answered at that time. Specific questions about Sherbourne Station answered at that time. We haven't heard a whole lot about Westboro Station, but I mean, the same applies for folks in that vicinity as well. And I will say also, Dr. Garcia, that you have a direct line to Ethel and Jamie and myself, and we're always happy to answer all your questions. Brenda asks, was there an assessment of the cumulative impacts of the LRT, the SJAM reconstruction, redirection, new parking lot, and redevelopment of Westboro Beach, as well as the SJAM ski trails under the Impact Assessment Act?
I'm unfamiliar. I'm not the person to answer that. I'm sorry.
We will look into that. That will be one of the questions we'll try to get answers to on the blog at a later date.
Thank you.
Carol Lorries is wondering the size of the trees to be planted.
There is a minimum caliper that the trees can be replanted at 0.70 millimeters, or 70 millimeters is the smallest caliper tree that can be planted.
Okay, thank you. Denny Paul seeking clarification on pedestrian crossing at Rochester Field. I heard you say the crossing is at grade level. Does this mean people will be crossing the tracks? How is that safe? I hope I misunderstood.
So you didn't misunderstand. It is at grade, but what I will clarify is the tracks will be below grade. That tunnel is going to be in operation. The crossing will go over the tunnel, but you will cross Sir Johnny MacDonald Parkway, and that's why we'll have a signalized crossing there. But this is a great time for me to say there are 0 at-grade connections of the Confederation line east and west from Moody to Trim. There is no opportunity for a car, a person, a cyclist to cross the alignment. It will be protected either by a fence or a wall or a trench or a tunnel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Brenda writes, so we have 7 days to provide input. Here's a start. I recommend 4 native tree species replaced, that there be 4 native tree species replaced for everyone that was cut down, that these be replaced in the same community spaces that they're removed from. This would provide the city with the opportunity to demonstrate solid environmental results and tell a good story. That is my input. Please submit accordingly.
Thank you, Brenda.
I believe we are at the end of the Q&A. We do have a number of other ones that are specific to Kitchissippi Station from earlier on, but I believe our best line of action on that is to convene the Kitchissippi Working Group. There are questions about plans and designs and things of that nature that I don't believe we have tonight, so we can certainly delve into that when those working groups are reconvened. And if there are no further questions, Jeff, Councillor Kavanagh, any final any words?
No, I just want to say, I mean, obviously there's a very high level of interest in this. Our working group formats were productive when we were going through the planning phase. These larger meetings have been helpful to give the broader residents a general overview of what's going on, but I'm looking forward to a resurrection of the smaller working groups. And I just want to say as well, an apology to residents for the disruption that this is causing. I'm meeting with Kev every couple of months, roughly, in which are asking for noise exemptions. And I'm trying to get as many conditions around overnight work as I can before extending those, so that it's not constant overnight work, so that overnight work may affect an area for a few nights and then move on. But I am very aware that that is very disruptive for residents who are also dealing with infill, with the construction of large towers. It is an extremely busy ward. So I apologize for the disruption that this is causing you. Balanced against it, of course, is the need to finish this LRT. There are, I am very aware, thousands of residents whose transit experience has been made a nightmare because we only have stage 1 transit open right now. Tunney's Pasture is not intended to handle the number of passengers who are transferring from the suburbs. There's a balance here. So I am trying to get as many conditions on night work as possible. I am pushing back as hard as possible on the most disruptive work, but things like paving and concrete work, there's going to be some nights when in the vicinity of your station, there is some of that overnight work. And I will continue to try to push that balance in the favor of our residents, aware of the larger city building implications of this project. Thanks, Tom.
We do have email lists set up. If you'd like to know when to expect the overnight work, you can write to me, tom.tekloff@ottawa.ca. And I get a sort of a weekly look ahead on Mondays, and I send that out. There's a separate list for Sherbourne Station, for Kitchissippi, and for Westboro Station, folks in the proximity of all those stations. While Jeff was speaking, we had a chance for 2 more questions, so I'm just going to throw them in. Marilyn asks, we'll get right to you, Councillor. Marilyn asks, will there be green sound barriers between Fraser and Cleary on the south side?
So on the south side of the excavation that's currently occurring, Jamie, what kind of mitigation currently exists between Rochester Field effectively and Cleary?
So let me go back and take. I'm pretty. There is some currently up around Fraser. When I'm sort of Fraser and looking towards Rochester Fields, I'll go back and have a look at that, Damon, and I'll get back. And if there's an opportunity to put that up, we do put that up. But I don't know. Let me go back and take that away.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. And one last question from Brenda.
And I guess what would be important to note. Sorry, Tom, I guess the idea is? do we think that what exists is not sufficient and they're looking for more? That would be kind of the follow-up. So just the answer in isolation probably won't get what the resident is looking for. So the follow-up.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Thank you. One last question from Brenda. Why were the trees cut down for the parking lot at Kitchissippi before the zoning decision was made? Recognize this is an LRT meeting and that is part of the Westboro Beach redevelopment. So we may not have an answer tonight, but we can look into it. Okay, Councillor Kavanagh,
Oh, thank you, Tom.
the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. This has been a learning experience for me. I spent a lot of time going to LRT Stage 2 meetings, but for the 6 stations that are currently in Bay Ward, and a 7th is going to be added because Sherbourne will be part of Bay Ward. So very interested in it. I used to live on Sherbourne, actually, so I know the community well. And very similar concerns. My communities are asking, well, Damon can tell you, very similar questions. And the night noise, the concern about trees, the landscaping, we're dealing with all of that as well. And it's a balancing act because people want to have input and they're very involved in their communities, and it's balancing everything out. And yeah, it's going to be a big part of your community, all of it, and hopefully sooner than later. Yeah, so thank you for having me here. I appreciate being part of this, and like I said, it's good to hear about the other side of the ward to hear the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I just want to say Marilyn has mentioned about the mitigation around Fraser Cleary. She says there's nothing behind her house at 635 Richmond regarding sound mitigation at this moment.
Thank you, Marilyn.
And I will close out with a comment from Denny Paul. Comment only, despite the disruptions and the delays, I'm super excited about this whole project. Thank you. And with that, thank you all for coming. And like I said, this will be up on our YouTube channel and posted on our blog at some point tomorrow. So thank you for coming and have a great night.
To capture those Q&As. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.